Welcome to Show Studios' fully digital live panel discussions in collaboration with Harrods. For Spring Summer 2021, experts from all parts of the industry will discuss and debate the most exciting brands of the season. Today, in the midst of Milan Fashion Week, we are going to be discussing one of the most anticipated shows of the season since Mr. Raf Simons has joined as a co-creative director, Mrs. Prada. And the anticipation, the excitement, the curiosity that we all felt since the announcement months ago, it came to an end while we watched the show yesterday. And while we're letting this sink in, I'm here with an incredible set of panelists to discuss and hopefully having one of the most interesting discussion for this show and this collection. And I would like to introduce the amazing set of panelists that I have here with me, starting with, as I see them from my screen, because normally I have them from my right to the left. So I will start with you, Nat.
Hi guys, yeah, my name is Nat Tong. I am the creator of Instagram account Prada Archive, and I'm also a digital content creator and a DJ.
Shaquille?
Oh, sorry.
No worries, I know I have to call the names. I'm really sorry. I have to get used to that. Sorry.
My name's Shaquille Aaron Keith. I'm a fine artist, and I'm also a poet. And yeah, that's me.
Zainab?
Hi, I specialise in comms across PR, strategy, across fashion and sports.
Great. And Alexandra?
Hi, I am a stylist and a fashion author, and I am Glamour UK's fashion director at large.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much for all of you being here today and helping me going through a very, very important moment within our industry and in the fashion history. I want to start, the first point, I want to go to the moment right before the digital presentation, the digital viewing of the collection started. Right before that, I wanted to know what was your thoughts, your expectations, what you thought it could be, because the possibilities are endless between those two icons when they come to design together one collection. So I wanted that moment right before it started, how it felt for everyone.
I think you always feel very nervous when you've got a show.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one designer and they're continuing through, I'm always like, oh, I can't believe I'm sitting here at the moment when your vision is going to come in front of me. And
right.
then that's magnified, like, well, double, because there's two icons. So it was like real, just excitement, what's it going to be?
Was it something specific you thought that it could be, or you thought the possibilities could be endless here? So I won't even try to guess. I'm going to wait.
I just wanted it to all wash over me. And I wanted to, what with everything else going on in the world, thinking about what it could be, hoping that it would be quite Prada-ish, but just surprise me with it. Just let it wash over me when it comes.
Cool. So anyone else?
I think it was just an exciting moment. I think you know, obviously for a very, very, very long time, Prada has really been that brand, and Raf Simons has obviously really been that guy. So to see them two come together was something I think was really unexpected. But once it was announced, you know, just like, you know, Matthew Williams and Givenchy, you know, it's highly anticipated. You know, everyone wants to know how these two fashion houses and like how these two different avenues can kind of cross together and what can be made. You know, it's quite exciting when you see things like that happen. And then I think, in the midst of everything that's been going on, it's quite a nice surprise to kind of be hit with. So I just remember just sitting there waiting, and I was anxious. I was like, man, I can't wait to see this stuff, man. Like, because not only is it a chance for you to get the vision behind the designer, it's also a chance as the viewer to also take away some inspiration. So I was excited to see what I could also take away personally, you know.
Okay, cool. Not Zainab?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Oh, sorry, you go first.
I was just going to say, I mean, historically, it's just such a huge thing of these two designers coming together. So I was either expecting like a big bang and something completely different out of this world. But out of all the shows this season, it was definitely one that I was most intrigued by. I was really looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
Nat?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's such two massively cultural brands that have like kind of dominated fashion and like outside of fashion for the last like 10 years, 5-10 years. So it was just, I tried to just like kind of suspend any like hope of what I thought it would be, and just kind of, as you said, Alexandra, kind of like let it wash over me and kind of just like take it in as I saw it. And especially it being without like a proper crowd or like a runway, it was just interesting to see how that would be done, like between like two great minds. And yeah, just, you know, just really excited, really ahead of it.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a bit about the format, you know, like the digital format. I mean, obviously, you know, because of the restrictions and because of what's happening, you know, we all got to experience, you know, the collection, the fresh collection in a digital format through our laptops and cameras and screens. I thought in many ways, this is very, very democratic and very inclusive, because actually, you know, we all had the same access. We all watched and saw exactly the same details and the same way of perceiving it, but each one of us was individually, you know, by ourselves, and we had our own emotions and we had our own feelings about it. I want to go to Shaquille really quick about this, because I know you have a very successful YouTube channel. So I want to understand, you know, what and how technology in that sense, you know, help us, you know, is it, because I think Mrs. Prada mentioned it as this is almost as extensions of ourselves. But how do you feel about this medium and this experience you already have, knowing also you're using it quite a lot?
I don't really use it so much anymore. But when I was using it, you know, I did notice that obviously it's you make everything more accessible, as opposed to you know, when you do things in like real time and real life, you know, it's like only a limited amount of people will see that, as opposed to people have access to the internet and can see everything. So I think the approach that they made was actually really good, because it still felt like we was watching an actual show, and to a lot of people it's not much difference. Because not everyone is going to be able to travel to go to see a Prada show. So the fact that they was able to document it and release it in the exact same style, just minus the crowd, I think was really well done. I think a lot of brands and a lot of people during quarantine, obviously it's kind of hard. You're trying to find, you know, a way to deliver your product and the way to deliver your vision whilst keeping your integrity. And I feel like the way that they did that very well. And the thing about the internet age is, no matter what generation you're in, if you're very old school, very new school, like this, the one common denominator is that, you know, platforms like YouTube, Instagram and stuff like that, it really does have a big reach, and it can be very beneficial if the work you're doing in real life and real time is really good. Once you put it out there for it to be distributed and accessed by other people, you know, you definitely receive the rewards. And I noticed that from when I was doing the fashion TV show as well. Like, you know, the quality that we had at the time when we was doing it and when we put it out, you know, we reaped a lot of rewards, because, you know, we spent a lot of time making sure that, you know, we did our best. And I feel like the way that the show was put out, you know, even, oh my gosh, even when they you know what, they interacted with the crowd at home a lot more than I felt that they probably would have, given it was an actual show. When there was this one model walking past and she stared at the camera.
Stared at you, yeah.
I was like, yo, I felt that, and I was like, yo, that's
given that drama.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I feel like that
yeah.
itself was just like, I love that. That was like proper putting the attitude back in fashion. Made me feel like I actually kind of reminded me of like some kind of like clips I would see on YouTube, like 90s fashion shows, where it was all about the attitude, the drama, the personality. So it was kind of nice to see that, and I think they did that in a really cool way, man. So yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, I think what you're saying is very, very important, you know, because that's, I guess, the risk, with this is that, you might miss that physical contact, that energy, which will create a specific emotion. So what you very accurately said, because I felt it as well, and I want to check with the rest as well here, is when they looked at you, you felt immediately a connection. You were like, oh, wow, like, so it was quite cool for me to see. But how the rest felt about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sure we'll get on to like the interview and what was said, but Miuccia alluded to it about being able to see the clothes better and like the details and the models like instantly, instead of having to wait and have this second audience almost, in terms of people who haven't been there to see the show. Everyone's able to see it instantly, straight off the bat. Camera angles from all sides, which is adding to like the aesthetic in general, but also just making it easier for people to see what they've created. And she also said, sustainability and inclusivity. So she mentioned that in her interview afterwards, and I thought, that kind of came across quite clearly in the way they produced it.
It also seemed quite humble and made me love them more as a duo that they'd done video, because I've kind of got mixed feelings about the fact that there are IRL shows still happening, people still who look like they're jammed together on the front row. Yes, they're wearing masks, but there's something quite sort of almost stubborn about how Italian fashion is going on, and they're like, the show will go on, we're having our shows, we're doing this, and you think that this is basically the biggest moment of spring 21.
Absolutely.
And Raf and Mrs. Prada could have totally gone on and go, yes, we'll do our big show, but they're like, no, let's do it in a different way. I just have so much respect for them for doing something digitally and then having the intimacy of the chat at the end.
Fantastic. Zainab?
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say, for me, the part that I enjoyed was I'm very much here for making fashion much more democratic. I think for people that aren't necessarily insiders of the fashion industry, they don't really get a look in to see what these shows are like until quite recently. So I think now taking it this next step further, just presenting it to everybody at the same time is a really beautiful thing. It allows everyone to sort of like see what's going on. I think it feels, for consumers, you feel much closer to it. And I agree with all of you, like when the models, even having their names going by and the numbers of the looks and all of that felt very intimate and felt like it was, a real look inside what a real fashion show is like if you've never been there.
Right.
So it's great for the younger generation as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. So my next question is more actually towards Nat, but again, everyone please jump in the right moment. So, how obviously, in even on the last Prada show, but that happens between Raf and Prada all the time, that everyone tries to see, Prada reference Raf reference Prada, which collection they're referencing, which season they're referencing from the past. You're running a famous Instagram account that is called Prada Archive. And that's why I'm asking you that question. I want to understand how important it is for all of us to understand the past, to have the good knowledge of the past, whether we want to refer, like to the archival prints of Prada from 1996, or perhaps, the hoodie from Spring Summer 02 of Raf Simons, with the collapsed white hoodie and how much it was in the Prada in the beginning. So I want to understand, is this something very important to the customers, to the audience, or to the industry, or to our industry?
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it's super important. I mean, that's why there's such interest around these brands, because there's been this like interest, and then now there's like a nostalgic looking back on what's past, in Raf in the 90s and for Prada as well. And I mean, in this show, they've kind of very unsubtly almost brought those together in like in a very visual clashing sort of way. Which has worked for some people, and I know I've heard not so much for others. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely good to see for the more casual fashion fan, maybe, to just like be like, oh, I know that's from that. I'm able to link that in my head, that's very like old Prada for me, or like that's how I know Raf, him doing those prints, or like the oversized stuff, or like the knitwear. But so on that level, it's good for people to like see and be able to point out. But then people just want to see new stuff as well. So people don't want to see people want to see new ideas, stuff that hasn't been done before, which is very hard. Another thing they alluded to in the interview, like about being new in fashion, and then both really saying that it's almost like impossible, but that at the same time it's important to refresh your old ideas. So there's like a battle there between the nostalgic element and bringing something new, but it was interesting to see it to come together as it did.
Anyone else?
I think you need to go back and understand the past in any element. Say if you're kind of like into music, then you can go back and reference whatever album from the 70s or a B-side that formed now. And if you care about fashion or any particular designer, you want to have that knowledge to kind of make yourself feel one step closer to it by understanding.
Agreed.
Discussing newness, I think it's quite interesting because Raf famously said a couple of years ago that there's nothing new, and so to hear Prada, to hear Miuccia say something similar about there being nothing new, I mean, I disagree with that completely. I think there's something always new to be found, personally. But I think they both historically have, to your point about, they have this, large history and huge archive, and they've already done so much that I understand from their perspective, they can definitely reference themselves or find something new in their past storytelling. So it's quite an interesting angle.
Zainab, thank you so much for saying that, because that was actually a question that I had for you, because obviously being a marketing and PR expert, working with many brands, always the question is about newness and what is the latest, what is about overall about newness. And you said very rightly, I had the interview afterwards, between Mrs. Prada and Mrs. Simons, Raf saying that well, let's define what is new first, and then let's discuss it. And then they said that Raf said that young designers, emerging designers, should bring the new ideas on the table. But for me, watching it, I thought, first of all, one second, two major creative minds collaborating for the first time, that's newness itself. The format that they chose to show the first collection is new by itself, so I want to understand what is a part of newness that we're talking about, and how important is actually in your world and in the brands too.
Jack or anyone? I mean, no. Well, I just the whole no, I was going to say, I mean, there was a lot of new elements to the situation, obviously, with COVID, it being a new beginning for both of them, like the first of its kind in such collaboration between two such big artists and fashion designers. So it's personally, they could have maybe pushed the boat out a little bit more in terms of bringing something new, and I know other people might have wanted to see that as well. Because they've kind of stuck to what they know in terms of some of the designs. I'm sure we'll go and speak about the clothes and stuff. But there's a lot of new already happening with the collaboration, with the situation. That's my point basically.
I kind of get that as well. I feel like a lot of people, me and my friend Tom, we was talking about the show, and both kind of came to the conclusion that a lot of people would see this collection as kind of like very, mundane. It's not really trying anything majorly new. But I feel like everything takes a process. A new element to me is last season, no one could say that, Prada had prints on their clothes. You know what I mean? All ideas get expanded and pushed. And when I mean prints, I mean like the kind of prints that Raf would do. You know what I mean? So going back to what was just said about, the collaboration itself is very new. I feel like sometimes with, not even just with designers, but musicians, actors, whenever they're trying something new, I think people always expect them to go into their new situation and hit it head on with a bang every single time. And I think people never really give people much slack to get used to their new surroundings and their new scenario. So I feel like with this one season might not be as impressionable as we had imagined it to be. I don't feel like this is the end. I feel like this is just, before you get in the pool, you got to put your foot in to see if it's cold or hot, and you're going to prepare yourself. And I feel like, Raf is a normal person, like, you know, everyone in this conversation and people watching. So he's definitely not oblivious to some of the comments people would have probably made, and he'll take that on board as a designer. But also, I feel like, you know, that is fashion. It's progression. Even though the argument might be that there's nothing new, somehow in fashion design, the constant argument in design itself is to still seek something new and create something that you didn't create before. Whether it's a major jump or it's a little jump, it's still a jump. And I feel like you need to take into account that this is literally just like the first season, limited resources. You know, it's not the same as it was before. You know, there's so many different like things that go into, you know, why I feel like certain why it might not be is exactly as people want it to be. Maybe this is exactly where Raf wanted it to be, but I feel like it's one of those things where you look back after a while and make the conclusion rather than allow one person to do one thing and then be like, oh, nah, I feel like this collaboration ain't really gonna be it. You know what I mean? Same thing happened when you know, when Burberry changed their monogram, no one really liked it. Now everyone's talking about the new Burberry bags and all of this stuff, and it felt like yesterday everyone was kind of like, nah, this isn't cool, man, I don't like this. So I feel like people need to give things a chance, and they just need to just wait. You know what I mean? At the same time, so that's my opinion on that.
I mean, it's a very valid opinion and very well, you know, thought. Alex, do you have a different thought or a similar thought?
I'm going to go similar, because what Shaquille said, and also what Zainab, you said earlier, that you're always looking for newness, and the fact that, and you said they are two designers coming together, that's new. And there's so much pressure. There's no such thing as a new idea and everything is redone, but just those little baby steps,
right?
Refreshing. And also not to do that kind of like 180 every season. And like they said, they want to make clothes that are going to make people's life easier. That's new, because we've been bombarded with trends for the past kind of like 5 years. It's been like, now it's mini skirts, now it's maxi, now purple's in, now it's brown. So just to have a collection of really refined, great clothes that are almost seasonless, I'd be more into that and was more into this than seeing something that is new.
I so much agree with you, because I also think that you know, I have 2 points here, you know, like, and these are my personal thoughts. Every time with a Prada show, with a Raf show, I always know that I have to let it sink. I said that also in the introduction, you know, because you know, you see it, and then because they both are extremely intellectuals in the way that they design the collections, the layers and the sub-layers that exist in each one of these collections and in each one of these garments, you know, you understand them within time. And I change quite a lot of times, you know, with while I'm watching the same season in different periods of time, you know, in different months. And I think this is something very important to always keep in mind when we see the collections of Raf and of Prada Division, but also the collection they designed. And I think a second thing which they both mentioned was that there is also, you know, the designers, they don't live in a separate world from us, you know, like they understand what's happening in the surroundings. They know, you know, that right now simplicity, perhaps, you know, like something, not simplicity, something that doesn't yell and shout, you know, it fits better to the surroundings of what's happening to the rest of the world at this stage. Yeah. No?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Alex, I want to ask you something. Sorry. Who?
No, I was going to say, as you said, Stavros, yesterday, when you're watching it after the anticipation, and then when you're watching it with the music and the set design, it's like so dramatic, and you're taking it in, and you want to be like, wow, I'm so amazed by that or by this. Maybe other people will take it in differently, but then even having 24 hours to let it settle in, you know, you kind of form a very different opinion quickly, or, you know, you become settled, and you're able to look back across at it and see what's been shown, and it's easy for things to change in your own mind. And as you said, it happens over months, it happens over time, so it's yeah, it makes sense.
That's cool. Alex, I wanted to ask you something because you said a word that is, I think, very, very important at this period of time. You said about timeless, about seasonless. Clothes perhaps that, transcends through seasons and then not let them be defined by seasons in any way. So I wanted to hear your thoughts about how important is it right now or not. You think is important, for a collection to be very much reflective of the specific season, that they belong to, or, they can be a bit more seasonless and more timeless in that sense.
There's two sort of strands in that. We've been so used to the system telling us to buy things now and then buy things another thing. You need another dress next season because we're doing a different thing. And because fashion, like you said, fashion is part of the real world. We're all going through these things. We're all seeing documentaries on the TV. We're all having to wear masks and not see our friends. So for it not to be affected by the overall circumstances would be absolutely like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. So I think this is probably the most political thing that they can do by making the perfect kind of grey pleated midi skirt, great knits, coats that are going to last for more than one season, whether you bought a clutch coat 5 years ago or this is your first one and you're going to wear it in 5 years. I think at this point, I mean, it's so removed from fast fashion what these two deities of design are doing, but that it has that longevity that then needs to trickle down through the rest of the system.
Right.
But I think that it's their clothes are timeless. I mean, I've got things that I bought from Miu Miu in like 1997 and they don't fit, but I keep them and look at them and I'm like, I love you still. And you want to have something that you're kind of obsessed with and love and go on the journey with you.
Fantastic. What about you, Zainab? What do you think about the whole concept of timeless at this stage?
I mean, I've always been a huge fan of that personally. I'm not a very seasonal dresser, but I do like, classic things. And they definitely spoke about uniform in the conversation. And I'm very similar to that. I'm mostly dressed in black or dark colors or whatever. So there were so many pieces in this collection that would appeal to something that I would have in my wardrobe that I would wear for the next 10 years and worry about it.
Right.
I like sort of like easy wearing pieces. And I think to everyone's point, it's very reflective of the time. I don't think many people are thinking about a large expenditure on looking seasonal right now. So to have good basic pieces that are cut beautifully, I think that's a better investment for most people that are going to be consuming going forward.
Great. I wanted to ask one last question before we dive into the collection, actually, and we start looking, on what we liked, our comments and everything. They talked a lot about Prada-ness, and of course, there is a lot of people that they talk about, the Prada set of codes, basically. And without trying to define them, because I think pretty much everyone at this stage understands a good proportion of what the Prada set of codes are. My question is to everyone here, do you feel that Raf Simons in Prada, he's an outsider coming into the brand or an insider of the brand, knowing the DNA of the brand extremely well? That's a question for all of you, by the way. So whoever wants to go first.
Well, I think he said, didn't he himself, that he was still an outsider of the brand. But having said that, of course, him and Miuccia have known each other for so many years, and they're obviously great friends, and they have great respect for each other. So he's coming at it from that perspective, which is interesting in and of itself. To see what he's created with her is great. But I'd say he is an outsider still, even though he's got that close relation to Miuccia. He's got such a strong aesthetic himself. Like that's why he's been brought in, isn't it? Really, because he's got that perspective, and it's another thing that's being given to Prada, and yeah.
Great. Shaquille, Zainab.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the fact that he is an outsider is what gives him the edge and what makes him best suited to be at Prada right now. So I think he is an outsider, but I don't think being an outsider is bad. I think I think it adds another side to the coin. You know what I mean? which I think could be quite beneficial for both parties, you know. So yeah.
My perspective on it is that that Raf is probably, you know, a huge fanboy of Prada, so he probably knows all the collections and what she does inside and out. So I think for him to express that is going to be very interesting. That's probably why he feels like an outsider, because he's never I guess Dior was maybe the first sort of big fashion house that he kind of worked with, and like Prada is a complete, you know, independent but an empire of its own. So I think working within those structures for him would definitely feel like a bit of an outsider sort of feeling. But I think in terms of, you know, what he knows about Prada, I think he knows everything. I think he knows everything. So it'll be interesting to see how much give and take, because, you know, no collaboration's easy. Everyone has to bend a little bit. So I'm interested to see, as this sort of relationship goes on, how that looks.
Absolutely. And they have they have the same very close team of people working before even, you know, the collaboration happened. I mean, Willy van der Beer, Oliver Rizzo, you know, they both working with the same team of people for many years. But Alex, I wanted your opinion as well on this one. Do you believe he's an insider or outsider?
He is outsider, and your analogy that he's a fanboy is like perfect. That he could go through all of them, and he probably does know as much about the collections as Mrs. Prada does. They're kind of like kindred spirits. I don't know, weird analogy. Maybe they were twins that were separated at birth and were like living their lives on other sides of the planet, but now have kind of like come back and have had weird coincidences through their life that they can then share in their journey of design together.
Yeah, can I just say as well, just following on from that point exactly, but also about the Prada-ness. I mean, Raf clearly has it in his mind, like what the attitudes and like the bullet points and like the pillars of Prada, like what they are. He seems to have understood them before even coming on board. You know, like the sense of community, the aesthetic, the intellect. It's a seamless transition for him, I think, really. And you know, it's kind of makes him seem like he's almost like born for the role, or as you said, Alexandra, like a kindred spirit alongside Miuccia, or separated at birth. Yeah, but I think it's perfect for him.
Weird one, but yeah, you got
it. No, I know what you mean. I agree.
I think you described it very well. Yeah. Okay. Let's discuss a bit about the collection. Basically, the collection itself. So the collection, the title was Dialogues, and we kind of like briefly touched it. You know, the uniform was something very important to the way that they both, I think, approached the collection. It was a lot of couture moments into it, whether that was the clash codes and you know, and a lot of different things, and especially the fabrics. And it was very elegant, very chic, but also very modern and cool, as they both always design. I wanted to know, firstly, you know, when you were watching it on the first time, what was the moment that you squeezed your eyes, you went closer to the screen, and you wanted to see something, you know, much better? What was it a look specifically, or was it something specifically that you wanted to see or touch or feel at this stage?
I feel like oh, sorry.
No, you go. Yours, yeah, you go.
I feel like with most collections, you can usually tell, but after like maybe like the first 6 to 10 looks, you can kind of start to gather where the energy is going and where it's being directed. And then sometimes throughout the collections, you know, somehow it switches up and it kind of changes a little bit. But I think when I started to reach the second couple, and I didn't really feel that energy was going to change that much, I was kind of like, okay, cool. Like, I feel like he's just trying to. This collection isn't, like I said, it's a bit mundane, but I feel like, you know, because it was like the first one, I just kind of like expected it to be a bit more loud. But you know, again, with that being said, again, with it being the first one, I kind of was just kind of like, okay, cool. Like, maybe he's still trying to figure out what he can do here, like, you know, where he fits in, where his ideas fit. And you know, I think things on a deeper level. So I think about the things that we didn't see, the initial designs of what could have been that might be moved to the next season. Certain people, like maybe in Raf's ear, like, oh, this isn't very Prada of you. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, you know, I feel like, you know, after the first couple looks, I was just kind of like, I took it as, this is the collection. If it is like dialogue, what I'm hearing is, this is something new, but not what you think it's gonna be. And I feel like it's an ongoing conversation that takes a couple more seasons to kind of get what the conversation actually is, not just this one. So that's kind of how I felt about it. That makes sense.
What was for the rest, that moment that you squeezing your screen and you were trying to, was it a specific?
You mean in terms of stuff that just was thought-provoking, or stuff that I liked specifically? Was
it a specific look or a specific creation that you really wanted to see more from it, or it intrigued you, basically? Yeah, it was intriguing for you.
I mean, it was interesting to see. I think it's the early 20s look, 23 or 24, where it's literally his old classic Raf prints literally slapped on oversized hoodies and stuff. It's quite on the nose in that design. I was kind of surprised to see that, because as the show went on, it was kind of like a middle ground of, you know, the nylon, the centered logo, like the coat wraps, which I thought were really cool. And then I was like, okay, this doesn't seem very like clearly Raf to me. And then bang, those came along, and I was like, okay, I see the prints, I see the classic prints that have come back now. And it's that was intriguing to see. Sorry,
I didn't want to interrupt you. I said the prints by Peter de Potter, right? Yeah.
I mean, I liked it. I liked the prints when they were kind of done more subtly on the slimmer nylon dresses, but with the oversized like hoodies and on the pleated skirts, I wasn't sure, even like the idea of that without seeing it, like, but I mean, yeah, I don't know what you guys thought.
For me, I kind of really enjoyed seeing, basically, I mean, in both of them, I could see from the collection, could see references quite closely from, like, you know, classic Miuccia cuts and pieces, as well as, you know, Raf's use of prints on these designs. What I also saw from Raf, like a lot of his work that from, you know, from Jill Sander and also from Dior, those skirts was like quite a similar shape, especially that really beautiful cutout sweaters.
The peephole ones, you know, like
really enjoyed look 31 and 32, where it was this sort of bag, it was like a suit with the bag tied up, wrapped around. That's the one that made me like,
yeah, I love that. That was so nice.
Because that actually really made me, that was quite reflective of how I've been feeling in this quarantine, this sort of like squeezed out, like feeling. So, but, I mean, generally, I think they did a good job at sort of, you know, this is what our clothes look like from our perspective. I think it was a really easy introduction to what they both do, which I thought might be quite important in the long game of the narrative.
Right. Alex?
This is a bit basic, but the thing that made me zoom in was the shoes. Those really rich jewel colours, the perfect little kitten heels, and that elongated toe, which always is it's a classic Mrs. Prada. She does that kind of like ladylike elegance, but a little bit off through her accessories so well. So yeah, I was like, show me the shoes.
Can I just mention the earrings as well? The logo earrings. I mean, wow, I'm sure they'll be everywhere soon. That seems like quite an Instagram like hype beast stream right now, having such a, again, not to use it again, but on the nose design in terms of just having the logo. That it was interesting to see them go for that.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about the logo, you know, because obviously, you know.
Sorry to interrupt you, Stavros. If you could,
No, not at all. You know, like, I mean, it comes from you, actually. You know, I would like to discuss a bit about the logo. What were the thoughts, you know, in terms of like the placement, the way that it was presented? You know, how did you all feel about it? Because Prada is probably one of the most recognized logos, and something that probably, not probably, something that has made huge sales because of that logo. So how easy is to interfere, and if it's actually welcoming to interfere with a logo and place it and play around with it? What did you think of it?
It seems so different to see those great big kind of like warrior, they weren't breastplates, but they were, the placement of it here seemed like a totally different era. And I don't think I've ever seen that at Prada before. So that's a very new thing.
Did you like that? Did you like that about it?
No.
It was interesting. No.
And I look at it very basic. Oh my God, what do I want to buy? I'd probably shoot it because it's significant, but it's not something that I would want to have in my life and my wardrobe.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I kind of feel the same. Like I wasn't expecting the big Prada logo like right on the chest. It kind of threw me off a little bit on the dresses as well. But I wasn't really the biggest fan of that, can't lie. But that's me.
I was feeling as though it might have been a sort of goodbye to this whole big logo era that we've been in for such a long time. I think that might be the sort of like last chance, because I understood, a few years ago, especially when they reintroduced Linea Rosse and all that kind of thing, it's about, adapting to a new audience and a new demographic and all those kind of things. But I think this might be the last time that we see something as blatant as that.
Okay.
Very
interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah. What about the bags? What did we think? Because obviously, the bags is such a big component, to the success of the brand itself. Did you, or the different details, whether that was on this kind of like skirts or apron-like, bags, or it was on the back of the capes, or it was, proper bags actually. What were the thoughts about it? Were there any particular likes, any particular dislikes? Anything?
I really like the kind of more utilitarian bags, the ones that were on the coat wraps or on the skirts. Kind of harking back to like 90s Prada for me with the utility there. So I really rated those on that aspect. And obviously it's just so classic, like the nylon. For me, you can't go wrong there really. And then the bags, the bags alone, I like those as well. But my eye was kind of drawn to them being used in the coat wraps and the skirts.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really enjoyed that sort of all-in-one, encompassing one outfit. Everything's together. I don't need to worry about getting a separate bag. I quite like it. I think that's because, again, we've been, in this sort of like lockdown for so long that you realise you don't really need anything apart from your keys.
Right.
So I'm down to keep it a bit more minimal going forward. Yeah.
Handbags have kind of become obsolete. Shoes have as well, although we have needed to pop out to the shop or whatever. But you can shove your phone and your keys in your pocket, or your strap-on nylon bag over your kind of apron. So that was a really practical thing. That was it was strong looking but realistic.
Shaquille?
Oh, I just kind of agree with the above. I feel like everyone kind of hit all the points. So yeah.
We're also in tune. This is great, panel.
Yes, I know. I know. And after the show, we were blessed actually, to have a Q&A with both of the designers sitting there and answering questions from the audience. Again, I think that was very inclusive of them, like to actually open up immediately, to the audience, to everyone that was watching, asking if you have questions, submit to us. What was your favorite questions that somebody asked actually from yesterday? Did you all first watch it, or did you watch that part, or you skipped it?
Kind of skipped it a little bit.
Okay. Alex, you skipped it too.
No, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. At least it was bang there straight after the collection. There was no, separate video or separate time for it. In terms of favorite questions, we've covered a few of them, I guess, but the one about kind of Prada-ness, and then the uniform chat I thought was interesting, and hearing about, you know, what they both wear and see as uniforms, and hearing that they discussed it a lot, and that was a big part of this collection. I thought that was cool to hear. I mean, I could have listened to them for much longer than they were interviewed, to be honest, but
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed their chat. I really enjoyed the beginning part where Mrs. Prada made like 3 statements. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but one that did stick out was this sort of commitment that she mentioned about inclusivity and, like, you know, everything that's
Sustainability as well. Yeah.
recognizing all of that. And I thought to hear it from her personally on that platform was like really important, and I thought it was really great. And just to see them both in I mean, my favorite question actually came from a 10-year-old that they posed. And she was like, I love Prada, I love fashion, like what should I do? And instantly Miuccia was like, okay, she literally was like, it's my time to shine.
She was on it.
Yeah.
History. She was just like, learn as much as you can, get your references together. And I just thought, people give that answer a lot and it sounds super basic, but it's true. Like, you just need to sort of like research everything, and that's how you kind of find your love, I think. So it was really good advice. It's nice to hear that from her.
Absolutely. If you all had the chance to ask them a direct question about it, have you thought, you know, what it could be a question that you want to ask, or to put you, it's too much pressure right now to think about the question? Someone asked them, you know, what they have for morning, you know, like someone asked them, like, do you have a coffee? And Raf said, I'm having coffee. And Miss Prada answered, I'm just having hot water. So is there a question that you would, if you had the chance, you would ask them yourselves?
I feel like you can tell a lot from someone's lifestyle. So I'd probably just ask, like, what does an average week look like for you? You know, I feel like that says a lot about the method behind the way that they create, the way that they articulate themselves through their craft, and just their way of thinking. So I'd probably ask something like that.
That's a great one, actually.
It is a great one.
So yeah. I'd ask a similar one, yeah. Or, I mean, yeah. I know at one point Raf said, he mentioned how he doesn't like many brands, but I'd be interested to see which ones right now like intrigued him. I mean, that's quite a basic question, but having not thought about it before this, when you just asked me, then it kind of pops into my head. But, you know, it'd be interesting to hear what he thought of his favorite brands now, or what he thought was cool. Same with Miuccia, really.
And then I guess even if they weren't designers, if they had a different route and they didn't have their own clothes to wear, who would they wear? What designers would they want to wear for the rest of their lives? And if neither of them existed, so Raf couldn't say Prada, and then Mrs. Prada. Yeah. Your wardrobe would be empty, but like, what would you do about it? Where would you go?
That's a good. That's also a very good one. Yeah, it would be interesting to hear that.
I'd like to ask Mrs. Prada something about art. What sort of, which contemporary art is she into? You know, she's got the Cross and Holler slide in her HQ, so I would love to know what she's into at the moment, for sure.
And one thing we haven't discussed yet is that I don't know if everyone is aware of that information, but all the casting that I did for the show are actually never seen before. No, sorry, it was the first time for the models to have a catwalk. So everyone was like the first time actually that they walked for the Prada show ever. So what did you think about it? I thought it was brilliant. Myself, I thought it was an amazing thing that they both decide to do. Actually, it's back into this, you know, completely new, fresh, completely we are putting our own direction into all this. But I want to hear your opinions, you know, like of having, you know, again, one of the most anticipated shows of the season. You can have everyone you want, but you want to cast only fresh faces. And it's not just, you have people, real people with their names on the back. So how do you feel about it?
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, you go.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it says a lot about, you know, about really starting fresh as a whole, and like, you know, this is Raf's time now. Do you know what I mean? From the time where you're like, I don't want any models who have ever walked before. I want fresh faces. I want this to really be a testimony to people to understand, like, in this moment right now, everything is, we're going to try to be as new as possible, and that comes down to even the faces, you know what I mean? And it's so funny because with him saying there's no ideas that are new anymore, you know, Raf coming to Prada in one season, and you know, and like literally casting just fresh faces is a whole new idea within itself, you know what I mean? So I think he should give himself more credit for that, to be honest. But I think it's a testimony to him, man. Honestly, I think that just sounds, it's just a really good way to start fresh at a new environment, you know.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
It was equally humble as well, because they, in the way that they didn't do a big show, they could have had any big girl walking and got all headlines for, oh, Bella and Gigi and everybody, but well, not Gigi because she just had a baby, but literally them choosing new people and letting them enjoy their moment in the spotlight rather than relying on major names, and humble and refreshing.
Yeah, I think it was only a good thing, to be honest with you. I think it was very positive that they, you know, gave these people a chance. I think that we need more of that. I think we definitely need a changing of the guards, if you will. And I think this sort of way of working is really great. I think it's the best time now is to try something new, where everything's like, you know, but everything else has fallen by the wayside. Now's the best time to just give something a whirl. And they all looked amazing as well. And it was super diverse throughout. And I loved that. I loved that about it.
Fantastic. Well, we're almost running towards the end of our conversation. I just wanted to know any last comments, or let's talk a bit about the future, perhaps, you know, what we are expecting, that how this dialogue is going to continue. So I want to hear, you know, your thoughts about the future of Raf Simons and Miuccia Prada being co-creative directors.
Excited for menswear. Yeah, excited for menswear. I mean, as they said, they didn't have a lot of time for this collection, so it's just more conversations to be had, you know, between them. I'm sure. I'm kind of suspending any expectations on what's to come next. I'm just excited to see it, really. But it's yeah, I'm glad. I thought this went well. I mean, a lot of people thought otherwise, it seems, on my account. I mean, I was surprised to see so much negativity, really. But really? Honestly, I'd literally say probably 70-80% of it was that it was negative. So I was surprised, but I enjoyed it personally, and I'm super excited to see what comes in the future.
Maybe we should ask them again in a month or two, you know, because I think the market exactly reminds by then, you know, once it's settled. What about you, Shaquille?
True. Yeah, I think like I said earlier, man, like I'm just looking forward to seeing how you know, they're both moving forward together. I think it's gonna be an amazing journey. We've seen Raf do so many amazing things at other houses. I don't think we're gonna expect anything. I don't think anything less is gonna surface. I feel like you know, there was a lot of negative comments, but at the same time, you know what people are like. You know what I mean? Like 1 minute they're just like, oh no, I don't like how people were treating Drake like 10 years ago, and then now everyone's like Drake. And I just feel like, you know, same thing with Raf. Raf's been that guy, man. Like he's really, what he did, like even in the early 2000s, like 2002, 2003, is what people are just jumping on now. So I feel like Raf will always be a timeless person, and I just feel like for the future collections, I expect nothing less from the man himself, to be honest.
Fantastic.
Just they're in it. I get the vibe that they're in it for the long term. This isn't going to be one of those, oh, Raf out at Prada, Raf in at This is now, this feels like this is it for like 20, 30, 40, like lifelong.
Yeah.
At first, I thought this was more of a sort of like succession move where Raf was sort of coming in to work under Mrs. Prada. So I'm really interested to see what this sort of collaboration brings together, because they're two very strong personalities and like strong tastes as well. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that manifests in menswear. Now we've seen the women's wear. So,
and Raf is doing his women's wear for the first time. He's women's wear in less
It's
than
crazy.
a month, actually.
Yeah,
So,
I look forward to seeing how that looks compared to what
right.
just see now.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot happening this year. A lot of good things actually happening this year to keep us more and more excited.
Mm.
All right. Okay, cool. So thank you all for the panelists and thank you all for watching. For more extensive fashion coverage, be sure to visit Harrods on 5th floor on showstudio.com. And if you're watching via Show Studio's YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below, and we'll see you next time. Thank you everyone so much for joining, and I hope to see you soon all.